Okay, so we are, it's almost midnight, I think. After game two, we're wrapped up. Sixers have tied the series 1-1, heading back to Philadelphia. Joel Embiid was on IVs prior to the game after a stomach flu, or as he said, if you've ever had the shits, you know what it's like. We talked with Joel in the locker room, sort of off the record, semi off the record. He was pretty happy. He and Jimmy were talking right after the game about that final pass where Joel had three guys draped on him, and he was able to get that ball out to Jimmy Butler for what was a huge three late in the game. And just a fantastic effort defensively from the entire team. Ben Simmons on Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi got his 35 points, and he did it efficiently, but he didn't have nearly the same impact as in Game 1. I argued in Game 1 that his impact on the game was probably greater than his 45 points would indicate. I would say that the opposite is true today. He had 35 points, but his overall impact on the team really wasn't great. And they held the team to 89 points. An NBA team in 2019, in the second round of the playoffs, being held to 89 points is a great effort. Raptors only shot 36% from the field. So the credit goes to Ben Simmons. The credit really goes to Brett Brown, who pulled a real change-up in assigning Joel Embiid on Pascal Siakam and putting Tobias Harris on Marcus Gasol. And Joel and I talked about this in the locker room. He didn't talk about it in post-game officially on TV, but he talked about, one, his personal assignment, and he was happy that he held Siakam to 9 for 25 from the field. He was very pleased with that. But also, the secondary reason for trying to limit or put him on Siakam was to allow him to do some more rim protection and double off to give some help on Kawhi. Essentially what he said to me was, as long as Siakam wasn't in the corners, he had free reign to sort of help off of Siakam. So it looks like they don't want Siakam hitting or shooting corner threes, but other than that, they're perfectly happy to let him shoot in the mid-range or even from three above the break. So really interesting moves by Brett Brown. He put Greg Monroe in as the backup center instead of Boban. Obviously, Boban was a problem in Game 1. And I think the main reason, though, is that because they were going to use the center position to help off of Siakam, I believe that Greg Monroe, or really anyone but Boban, was going to be a much better option to do that. So Greg Monroe came in, really played good. He just was effective in his minutes, and he said that he knew a couple of days ago that this was going to be his game to play. It'll be interesting to see if they stick with that. I see no reason why they wouldn't stick with it until Toronto makes their adjustments. Couple of other notes: 3 games off before Game 3. A little more time for rest and recovery for Joel Embiid. And Mike Scott, who told me before the game that he is getting better and that he hopes to play this series. So 3 games off between the next 2 games each. So they'll only have 2 games in the next 7 days, or 8 days. So that's a good sign from a health standpoint. And it also, I think, is a key for a more experienced head coach and coaching staff for the Sixers to be able to play the chess game and really game plan for the Raptors. So while the Raptors have a couple of really all-world players that are super difficult matchups, and they have a really good bench who hasn't done much this series, the Sixers, you know, they're in the spot that they had hoped to be. They wanted to steal a game. They've done that, and they've thrown a curveball, and we'll see if Brett Brown can keep Nick Nurse guessing. So that's all from Toronto. We had a great time covering here. We will see everyone back in Philadelphia on Thursday.